Things that we know, that police have issued a bulletin. They are also looking for O.J. Simpson's vehicle, and they believe that one of those vehicles may indeed be a white Isuzu Trooper. O.J. Simpson's disappearance has to rank as one of the more embarrassing moments in the history of local law enforcement. Phil Schuman is standing by live downtown with more on what the district attorney is saying about O.J. Simpson, the fugitive. Phil?
Well, if things had gone according to plan, what we would be reporting on now is the fact that O.J. Simpson was arraigned at 2 o'clock this afternoon on 2 counts of murder and is being held without bail in the Men's County Jail. That, of course, has not happened. A very angry and somewhat embarrassed District Attorney Gil Garcetti fended off some half hour of questioning rather smoothly. What he did not say, perhaps as important as what he did say, he did not say what went wrong in the process of turning O.J. Simpson in. He did issue a stern warning to anybody who knows where O.J. Simpson is.
If you in any way are assisting Mr. Simpson in avoiding justice, Mr. Simpson is a fugitive of justice right now. And if you assist him in any way, you are committing a felony. Think about it. And I'll guarantee you that if there is evidence establishing that you've assisted Mr. Simpson in any way to avoid his arrest, you will be prosecuted as a felon. Now, you can tell that I'm a little upset, and I am upset. This is a very serious case. Many of us perhaps had empathy to some extent. We saw perhaps the falling of an American hero. To some extent, I viewed Mr. Simpson in the same way. But let's remember, we have 2 innocent people who have been brutally killed. We have their families who are still with us today, who are going to suffer the rest of their lives, including the children of the Simpsons. It's a serious case. We will continue to treat it seriously. We will be working closely with the Los Angeles Police Department. I want to go out of my way to congratulate the Los Angeles Police Department in the outstanding professional investigation that led to the filing of these criminal charges.
Mr. Garcetti also went out of his way to avoid even the slightest hint of criticism of the LAPD for apparently letting O.J. Simpson slip through their fingers. Now, according to Mr. Garcetti, he was asked, why wasn't O.J. Simpson arrested earlier? According to Mr. Garcetti, it wasn't until last night at about 8:30 that scientific tests came back in on some of the evidence they had against Simpson that allowed them to ask a judge for an arrest warrant, and none of that could have been completed before this morning. Both the LAPD and the District Attorney's Office continue to vehemently deny any allegations that O.J. Simpson received any special treatment because of his celebrity status. Reporting live, Phil Schuman, Channel 4 News at the Criminal Courts Building.
Phil, before we let you go away, okay, so nobody did anything wrong, but something wrong happened because O.J. Simpson is now a fugitive. There was a uniformed officer out in Brentwood. I don't know if you got a chance to hear him, but he openly criticized the department. He says, I don't understand how someone in the department could let this happen. What's your reading on that?
Well, it's obvious to anybody that there was a major foul-up here. What they're not saying is whether it was the responsibility of an LAPD unit to maintain surveillance on O.J. Simpson and that surveillance broke down, or whether there was simply a gentleman's agreement, an understanding between Robert Shapiro, a highly respected criminal defense attorney, and the prosecutors and police that he would deliver O.J. Simpson as promised. So it's clear that something broke down. What they're not revealing right now is at what step of the process that happened.
Garcetti also seemed to indicate the last time that he at least knew where the whereabouts, or knew the whereabouts of O.J. Simpson, I guess was this afternoon with a doctor or something, or excuse me, not this afternoon, but rather this morning.
Right, this morning he was with his friend Al Cowlings. Apparently he was seen by a doctor somewhere in the San Fernando Valley. That's according to reports. Nobody from law enforcement has said that they actually saw him. I asked Mr. Garcetti, I said, when was the last time that anybody in LA law enforcement was positive where O.J. Simpson was after yesterday's funeral? He said he couldn't answer that. And it should be pointed out that prosecutors have 48 hours to file charges in a case after an arrest. So that's 2 days. So he was asked repeatedly, why wasn't O.J. Simpson arrested when you knew where he would be? And then using that 48 hours, the test results on the evidence could have come back in, and that he would have been in custody during that time. That's one of those questions that Mr. Garcetti and the police simply explain away by saying they didn't have enough to issue the arrest warrant until they did.
Yeah, you would wonder why, if they had that test in at 8:30 last night, they just didn't pick him up then.
Well, they say it's not that simple. They say that you have to file paperwork with the court in order to get an arrest warrant. But we've also heard of many cases where a warrant can simply be issued by detectives picking up the phone and calling a judge. So the prosecutor and the police are asking us to take a good deal of what they say on faith at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much. Reporting live, Phil Schuman.